How's it going, all? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is a live stream from March 25th, 2024. How's everyone doing in the chat? I'll ask this question again, of course, periodically throughout the stream, because I want to at least have some form of interaction with you all. But yo, how's it going? I gotta apologize ahead of time for the people who have been on this channel for quite a while, as my internet refuses to function, which is great. I might get an internet speed test on the side, because my computer, for whatever reason, struggles in some instances. But I gotta apologize to the people who have been that went right down the wrong pipe. To the people who's been on this channel the longest. I apologize for having to give you guys the same style of event as you've probably seen dozens of times. This is another Dixie Alley event, another event that is localized within somewhere of Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and the western portions of Florida, into which the event can either do something or do nothing. And if there was any meme that could emphasize how I feel about today's event, that's how I feel. That is how I feel. So, with that being said, we do have a threat for significant tornadoes today. We do have a threat. It is there. It is near portions of Louisiana and Mississippi, right here outlined in this yellow. So if you guys know anyone that is here into portions of Louisiana, Mississippi, from New Orleans all the way up to Shreveport, to Jackson, Mississippi, please watch out. How's it going, everyone in chat? Yo. Lana Clemens, what's up? Allie Baker, what's up? Did I just start streaming? Yes, I did. 3 minutes ago. So yeah, as I said, Mustard, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. As I said, I have to apologize to the people who've been watching the stream, to people who've been on my channel the longest. I apologize for having to put you through another one of these little crappy situations of us tracking a severe weather event that might either do a lot or do nothing. That's right, Garrett. You're not a YouTube mod. You're a mod on my Discord server. You're not a mod on my thing. That's so weird. Here, I'm gonna fix that. There we go. Boom. Done. I'll move my popcorn thing over to the side because I need to eat something. I need to entertain myself in some instance. So, one thing I want to say here real quickly for you all is I have one rule for you guys today. All right? And I already see people putting it in the chat, and we're gonna try and change that here. We're gonna try and change the idea of how I am going to be able to talk about your area. So, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I have no idea where 80% of the town names that you put in the chat are. And it takes me about 30 seconds to look over here to the side and to search up where your certain area is so I can say whether or not it's good. So we're going to change that to make it a little bit more efficient. Okay? Because I want to still tell you guys if stuff's okay in your area or not. But if you guys could, let's say you wanted to know something about southwestern Mississippi. All right, right here. Let's say you lived right here in southwestern Mississippi and you wanted to know. You can either say, hey, what's going on in southwestern Mississippi? Or you can go to the nearest city, big city, if you will. Go to like Natchez. Go to like Macomb. And you say, what's going on for Natchez? What's going on for Macomb? And there's a good chance I probably will know. All right. But if you can do regional portions of the state, like let's say you live in southwestern Mississippi. Like I know where southwestern Mississippi is. I know all the states of the United States. Like it's the back of my hand. And that's not really a flex. But this is just going to make things a little bit easier for us. You know, for us to be able to try and communicate risks with everyone through chat. So, if you are wanting to know about a certain area, please abide by that. That's not saying I'm not going to respond to people who put their specific cities and stuff like that. But I'm more likely to respond to people who are asking about portions of the state rather than specific towns. Just wanted to get that out of the way. Okay. So we have that. We have that. Once again, threat for significant tornadoes. This is going to be mainly within this yellow area right here. If you see the yellow area, this consists of, and I'm going to take the radar and the watch off so you guys can see. Monroe, Alexandria, Natchez, Macomb, areas near Hattiesburg, Meridian, Yazoo City, and then of course Jackson. So these areas over here in Mississippi and Louisiana are definitely the areas to watch for the most. Areas surrounding that in the brown should definitely watch as well. We're talking about areas near Greenville, El Dorado, Shreveport, Lafayette, Baton Rouge, Hammond, New Orleans, Gulfport, Lucedale, and Demopolis. So basically just the surrounding areas here from the southern Ozarks all the way into the deep south. And then you also have the green that surrounds it, which includes portions of Memphis, Little Rock, Shreveport, Lake Charles, Beaumont, Mobile, Alabama, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Tupelo, stuff like that. So if you are in the southern risk, you guys should just monitor weather. I wouldn't be too scared. I wouldn't be too concerned. Realistically speaking, the areas that need to watch out the most should be the areas here in this yellow. But that's not saying that the brown should completely disregard either. If you're in the brown, I would still definitely monitor for activity as well. And then we also have this up here. And you might be wondering, well, what the heck? I thought the event is just for the southern portions of the United States. No, there actually is a small little tornado threat up here in northwestern Missouri and western to southwestern Iowa. So basically from Omaha and east. From the Missouri River and east, which is pretty crazy. So, pretty cool. Pretty cool to note. I don't really think they're going to do a whole lot. If there are tornadoes, they're going to be basically really strong, gusty winds. It's like a weak tornado. But other than that, it's not bad. Jackson, Mississippi. Jackson, Mississippi is in the main threshold here today. If you're in Jackson, Mississippi, you should watch out. You should definitely monitor severe weather here today. Yeah, I'm sick of these events. Can't wait to move away from Tornado Alley. Yeah, I get that. Northeast Mississippi, are we good for tonight? Yeah, Northeast Mississippi, you guys really are not in any main threat today. So, if anything, you'll get strong gusty winds. That'll be it. Yeah, so someone already asked if this event is mainly going to be linear. The answer is yes. The answer is yes. A lot of these storms are going to be mainly linear. And we'll go to our radar to kind of show you this whole shenanigans here of just storms. They're trying to do stuff, but they're not doing it very well. Yeah, it's just a lot of these storms are going to be very weak, so they're not going to be able to sustain themselves. And when they try to produce a tornado, they just end up producing strong, damaging winds. So it's kind of like, it's counterintuitive. The environment's not strong enough to sustain them for a very long time. It's my prediction for the Yazoo City famous curse. I mean, they're technically right on the border of the 10 sig, so anything is possible. Your mom and a bunch of your friends are in the 5%, southeast of Baton Rouge. Yeah, I mean, I think, honestly, down there, it's going to be pretty difficult for storms to really... I need to turn that off. Excuse me. For storms to really try and form that quickly. So, I think they should be all right, but it'll be something to watch for. I think they still definitely need to monitor the weather. Ready for multiple sleepless nights from streaming in May? Hey, that'd be pretty cool, though. I mean, May severe weather events, we haven't had those in, like, years. Since 2019. Lucas with the 5. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Says my homage to my favorite weatherman. Greetings from Fort Eisenhower, Georgia. Hopefully, nursing school is treating you well over there, Lucas. Thank you so much for the 5. I really do appreciate it. But yeah, this event is pretty... As I said, you can either get a lot of stuff that can happen, or you can either get nothing. And the unfortunate thing about it is we don't exactly know until the event actually happens. So we have to cover this event regardless, which is pretty annoying because, you know, I'm sure everyone kind of just wants to know, right? Everyone just kind of wants to know now. And we can just start getting ready now. But no, that's not how the weather works. That is not how the weather works. So, one thing I want to mention here, as we go to our mesoanalysis, I'm going to change our sector here so that way things are a little bit better. We have a lot of convergence already throughout this area. You see a lot of these blue contours, these little blue lines. They indicate a lot of convergence within the area. And that basically means that a lot of thunderstorms or some thunderstorm activity or just storm activity could be possible within there given the right circumstances. And we have a tremendous amount of it right here, tremendous amount of it off of the coast of Lake Charles, and then we have some of it off of the coast of southern Louisiana, but it's not exactly the greatest. So, Doodle Darko, what's up? Welcome to the stream. And then we also have some pretty good moisture within the area. So, this environment is favorable for something to try and form. The only problem is here is that when storms immediately form, if we take a look at the deep layer moisture convergence and the 100 millibar mean mixing ratio, which is just basically looking at the lowest 100 millibars of the atmosphere. So from the ground up, 100 millibars. We have a lot of this red here. A lot of this red. And this red is basically indicating how much deep moisture convergence there is within that level. Now, you can have some. You're allowed to have a little bit of it because obviously you need moisture convergence in order for you to get some pretty decent thunderstorms. But when you have too much, that's when you can get some pretty messy thunderstorms, like rain across the board style of thunderstorms. So we have a lot of that. We have a lot of deep moisture convergence across the board in this area, which means there is just a lot of, there's going to be a lot of rain. A lot of rain. And that rain can basically indicate as to whether or not storms could potentially try to be discrete without being impacted. The problem is that it doesn't exactly seem like that is the case. Someone asked if Shreveport's in the clear. Yes. The final line just passed through. You're going to get some more general showers and thunderstorms behind it, but it's not really going to do much. It's also Oklahoma here. It's trying to brew something already moving east. Yeah, it's, you got some little scattered showers and thunderstorms near you, but it's not really going to be doing too much. Latter half of April is looking active according to the CFS. The CFS is the CFS for a reason, though. But I do believe that April could be pretty active. I'm going to move over this radar right here because I want to show you guys some fun stuff. Do I think May will be the worst for tornadoes? I think April will. I think April will be probably the worst out of the 3 main months of tornado season. What do I think are going to be the chances for tornadoes near Jackson Airport in Mississippi? Jackson definitely needs to watch out. They're definitely in the main threshold for severe weather here today. Particularly for tornadoes. Really hope it's not cloudy and rainy on the day of the eclipse. Me too. I might head up to like Erie, Pennsylvania, Buffalo, or Rochester to see the eclipse. Garrett with the 2, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. It says insert Freebird music here. I know, right? If you haven't already, by the way, hit the thumbs up button down below. It helps us get out to more and more people on YouTube. And if you're new, feel free to subscribe. Join the community. We're able to get more and more people to help me spread the information with more people. I want to mention here real quickly this radar in particular. Now, here's the catch. We used to have a radar that was over here in Slidell. It was at KILX. Now, they have moved that radar over near Hammond, Louisiana, to try and get a better grip with radar near Baton Rouge. And that is a fantastic idea. Over the past 3 months, there has been no real radar coverage for southeastern portions of Louisiana until the previous couple of days. 2 to 3 days ago, they did their first test that I've noticed on radar, and it lasted for about an hour. Yesterday, they did a test, and today, from the looks of it, they have it operational for today's severe weather threat, which is really good. So I'm excited to see what this radar could do. It is definitely making the radar hole in southwestern Mississippi and extreme eastern Louisiana a lot better. There was a radar hole over in Natchez. There still kind of is. There's a pretty big radar hole in northeastern portions of Louisiana in general. But it definitely has cut down on the radar hole just a little bit. And it's definitely a lot better. What's my thoughts on tomorrow condition-wise? Tomorrow definitely is a little sleeper event for tornadoes. I like Indiana and Michigan, but the tornadoes are not going to be that strong. They're just going to be, they're just going to look pretty. I genuinely don't believe it's going to do more than what it could be. Is Columbus, Mississippi in danger of tornadoes? Not really. Columbus is a little bit more towards the north. So if I go over here to my little graphic for tornadoes. It might actually be a little bit easier if I GIS boundary line settings. State lines. Let's do 6. There we go. Is that a little bit better? That might be a little bit better. I think it's a bit better. So the risk for tornadoes is mainly within this yellow area right here. Columbus, Mississippi is all the way up here. Okay. So though they are in a small chance for tornadoes, it's not that high. It's not that high at all. But folks that are in the brown or in the yellow, they definitely should pay attention today. Is the wood in this? I have no idea what you are talking about, my friend. Please give me a specific area of your state, southwestern, northwestern, eastern, central, or the local major populous town that may be near there. Did the convective outlook just get updated? Notice that when the day before the event busts, the next day events are busts. I mean, kinda. Yes and no. Blondie, what's up? Welcome to the stream. Nice to see you. Give me an idea of what to expect here in Searcy. Yeah, Searcy is just gonna see not really a whole lot, honestly. It's just gusty winds, but nothing that's going to be severe, really. So you should be okay. Yeah, it looks like they did just update. It doesn't look like they've changed anything. Looks like everything has stayed the same. How's everyone doing here today so far? I'm doing all right. Got some decent sleep last night. I actually, I went to bed before midnight, I think. And then I woke up this morning at around 8:30, 8:45, something like that. So I got about 8.5 hours of sleep, but I definitely felt like I could have slept in more. Montgomery, Alabama. Alabama, I think, is, or at least that portion of the state is going to really see their activity tomorrow. But it'll at least be from this tomorrow morning, at least for Alabama in general. Tomorrow morning, early tomorrow morning into the afternoon is when you guys could really see your severe threat in portions of Alabama. Yeah, I kid you not. All right. We can look at the live look at radar, and I'll go up and down this line here, starting near Wheeling and Natchitoches. Right. You see there's like a little bit of a hook right here in the line, right? Little hook, right? Pretty cool. Go to the velocities. I kind of wish actually that I had, you know what? I could just manually do it. What am I doing? Place marker right here. Go back. Storm motion for marker. There we go. Velocities, dead. Nothing. Am I still biting my tongue? No, it's now something that's right on my lip, the inside of my lip, and it sucks. I honestly have no idea what it is. Something going on with my mouth, man. Could be the weirdest canker sore I've ever had if that's the case. But that's like the most well-pronounced cell along this line, and that's doing nothing. Go over here to this cell in Hutton. I mean, there's like barely any rotation here. Go to ZDR, try and look up and down this thing. ZDR usually tells me where the most robust thunderstorms are. There's nothing. There's nothing. Nothing. Canker sore? Yeah, so a canker sore is basically like little welts that are inside your mouth. They suck. I hate them. They're terrible. Is it going to rain in Arizona on Easter? Yeah, ulcer. It's basically another word for a canker sore. Mouth ulcers. That's a good question. Is it going to rain in Arizona on Easter? What am I doing? Go back. It doesn't look like it. It does not look like it's going to rain in Arizona on Easter. You got a canker sore under your tongue? That sucks. On the roof of my mouth, right behind front teeth. Oh. This radar has not loaded in a hot minute. We're turning it off and turning it back on. Lysine usually takes care of mine. I usually take vitamin C. Yeah, welcome to the world of weather, where we are trying to consider the following, right? I'm telling you guys, as I said, this event here today, it's either going to do something or it's going to do absolutely nothing. That's the funny part of this all, the whole thing. It looks like the cell near Simpson's trying to do stuff, but we're going to be here for a while. Believe it or not. Let's actually go. Yeah, so basically they're warning for the storms that are on the line. Jackson, Mississippi is going to get hit sometime around 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. Central. Woof. Yeah, the line really starts to materialize at 6 p.m. And then we try to get our discrete supercells here from 4 p.m., which technically it's 4 p.m. Eastern right now, but we continue to have attempts from now until 4 p.m. 5 p.m. is when things start to become a little linear. Yep, this event's going to be whack. We're just going to be kind of socializing for the most part. Farmer Matt with the 20, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Says hello again. We're going to be on and off. Yeah. Freaking work. I get that. I get that. There's people that are actually chasing today. Why? How's a cloud cover for the solar eclipse? That's going to be a real difficult question to answer, honestly, because we're still really far away. Do I like football? Yep. My girlfriend got me that scrunchie for Christmas. Did you see the 18Z ARRR for the Northern Sleeper event tomorrow? I did not. I did not. Why is this taking forever? There we go. Yeah, a lot of popcorn sells across the board. That'll do it. The eclipse is 2 weeks away. Yeah, and I've seen cloud cover on models change within a day. So I want to wait until we're at least a week. What about Farmerville, Louisiana? What part is that? What part of the state is that in? Am I covering tomorrow? I don't know. It's a 2%, so for right now, the answer is probably no. I will say that supercell that is near Atlanta, Louisiana, heading up into Winfield. That one could be something to watch. Total eclipse on the heart. There it is. Yeah, funny enough, I told someone that tomorrow could be a lot more active than today. And I said that as part of a joke, but I was also part serious too. Like, it's genuinely just okay. Storm Prediction Center issued thunderstorm outlook. I'm gonna move this. Move this all around. Lapse rates are pretty mid right now. That means the wrap nailed this event, which it usually does. The wrap nails. All right. It absolutely nails Dixie Alley events. That's what the wrap does. It just does that. Your friend is traveling to North Carolina / Virginia for a year. Does he need to watch out for it? Is there something maybe to watch out for? In the Outer Banks, hurricanes can move through there. Over the summer, late spring into the summer and into the fall, severe weather happens. If you're up in the mountains in North Carolina in the winter, freezing rain, so ice and snow is possible. Yeah, that's a lot of moisture convergence at the surface. That's a lot of convergence. Oh, trust me, there's always a lot of shear in events like this. But just bleh. What's up, Julius? Yo, how's it going? Eating my popcorn. Hey, Nate, can you briefly explain this cap I hear on streams like these? Yeah, I can. We're not really doing a whole lot right now, so why not? Okay. What I'm about to do is I'm going to show you guys a horizon view. All right, this is probably the best way for us to kind of illustrate what happens. We're going to go to this screen to do it because it's a little bit better. All right, so let's say we got our ground and we got our house. We got a house right here. All right. Now, with that house, we are going to look up and down the atmosphere. So we're going to label each little plot by a kilometer. All right, so every one of these lines on the left side is a kilometer. Now, at the ground, it's in some of these severe weather events, it's pretty warm. All right, you've got about, let's say, 60-degree temperatures. That's pretty cold, actually, but you know, for an event like today or an event like yesterday, I should say, it'll do. It'll suffice. But let's say at about 1 kilometer above it, you have temperatures that are about 62 degrees. And then once you get higher and higher up, it gets to like 40 degrees. We're talking about 32 degrees, yada, yada. All right. The air above the surface, in this case, is warmer. And a quick science lesson for you all. The reason why steam rises out of a boiling water pot. Is my headset really almost dead? Oh, that sucks. I thought I charged my headphones. I'm gonna have to charge my headphones in a bit. But the reason why steam rises is because steam and the hot air is less dense than the cooler air around it. So naturally, this air here is going to want to rise. But if you want storms to form, you need storms to start really forming near the surface, right? So what a capping inversion does is it prevents the atmosphere from really rising. And I will show you this with a sounding, just to try and make things really easy for everyone to understand. Because soundings are, in my opinion, a good way to illustrate what's going on. I need to find a good capping inversion sounding. You know what? Hold up. Why don't I just pull up a historical one? There we go. El Reno. Open image in new tab. And voila. All right. So, in this sounding, especially as you look over to your left right here, these little red indicators, this is your height above the surface, right? So you have 1 kilometer, 3 kilometer, 6 kilometers, and 9 kilometers above the surface. All right. So the higher you go within these lines, the higher up in the atmosphere you are. This red line is our temperature with height. This green line is our dew point with height. The closer the dew point is to the temperature, the higher the relative humidity there is. But one thing about it here is that if we zoom in to right here, all right, you see this? See this? The temperature right here is higher than the temperature right here. All right, so the temperature at this point right here is warmer than the temperature that is a little bit below it. Meaning that the air that is above the air that may be here at the surface is less dense, and therefore, if you think of me putting a rock into a cup of water, the rock sinks, right? That's because the rock is more dense than, say, if you were to put styrofoam on top of water. The styrofoam floats. If you've ever tried to push down a ball full of air, like let's say you had a soccer ball and you try to take the soccer ball into a pool and then you jump into the pool, the soccer ball immediately wants to shoot back up again, right? That's because the soccer ball is less dense than the water around it because it has so much air. All right? So it's the same principle. Warm air wants to shoot up out of that water, similar to the soccer ball. And cooler air is more dense, which is essentially like a rock that you throw into a pool, throw into a cup of water. So when you have an inversion aloft, this prevents the rising of air from the surface. Because if we go back to our steam analogy, our pot analogy, right? So we're going to create a pot, steam, right? So steam rises freely, right? But when you put a lid on top of your steam, it doesn't exactly come out of the pot anymore. And that's what the environment does whenever there is an inversion, a capping inversion. Doesn't inversions indicate absolute stability in the atmosphere? Well, not exactly absolute stability, because you would need a significant amount of it to do so. Like, you can have a small bit of capping inversion and it not be completely stable. Like, there's, like, this event, for an example. The event that I'm showing you right now produced a EF3 tornado that was originally an EF5 tornado, but because it did no damage to indicate it was an EF5, they moved it down to an EF3. Events can happen with slightly stable air, but it's not like, if there were no storms that formed on this day, then yes, the inversion would have absolute stability. But it just genuinely depends upon if storms form. So if they don't form, then yes. New mesoscale discussion, by the way, for the line. It says more rapid intensification of stronger cells embedded within the developing line of storms still appears possible through 4 to 6 p.m. Central Daylight Time, including the evolution for 1 or 2 supercells accompanied by increasing risk for tornadoes. Beneath the 50 to 60 kilometer or 60 knot, 50 to 60 kilometers seems legit. 50 to 60 knot southerly flow in the 1 to 2 kilometer AGL region. Low level holographs are large and clockwise curved. Environment is conducive for the evolution of supercells, posing a risk for tornadoes, possibly including a strong tornado or two. But that also says perhaps with at least some further low-level warming, inflow of more unstable air may become sufficient to support more rapid intensification of stronger cells within the line. The problem is, you don't really have a whole lot of that. So that's what the mesoscale discussion said for this red box right here, this light red, almost pink box. So what did they say? Basically, nothing that we already didn't know. Okay, so when looking at a sounding, where should we look to conclude whether the atmosphere is favorable for tornadoes, severe weather, if that makes sense? Basically speaking, if you looked at that sounding and said, hey, there's a capping inversion, you're technically not wrong. And if storms, even if storms form there, you would still be right if you said that, hey, no storms formed that day. That day in particular was just such an abnormality that you really shouldn't. But basically, if you wanted my short answer of that, is if this red line went over the dotted line like this, done. Dunsky. No storms. Not happening. But because the red line is a little bit to the left of this dotted line, just the fact that there was so much significant CAPE, like you could take a look at these CAPE numbers. Absolutely mental. Especially in the mixed layer. Mixed layer 3,361. Oh, that day was cooking. That day was cooking. But, yeah. As I said, that day was such an abnormality that if you're going to try and find something concrete off of that, it just ain't going to happen. Northwest of Lake Charles? I mean, north of Lake Charles? I have no idea what stuff you're trying to look for. Those indicate the dry adiabatic lapse rate and the moist adiabatic lapse rates, right? So how you can calculate the dry and moist adiabats in this case, okay? So this dotted line right here is your parcel temperature, your environmental temperature. Well, not the environmental, your parcel temperature. All right. So if you have a bit of air that goes up into the sky, this would be the path it would take. Okay. In the lowest level of the atmosphere, so below the clouds, it rises dry adiabatically because in the lowest level of the atmosphere, it doesn't form as clouds. Okay. It doesn't form at all. It reaches a certain point when it finally does. And how you calculate it rising dry adiabatically is through, you can see these little cream colored lines that are in the background right here. This is your dry adiabat. All right. So if you take your mean temperature, all right, you take your mean temperature from the beginning right here, which how you calculate mean temperature is a little bit too advanced for where you're at in Met 101. But you take it and you basically follow the line of the dry adiabat. All right. You just kind of trace. You imagine that line is a little bit over the side and you trace it all the way up to a point. Okay. And then when you look at your dew point, you see these green dotted lines right here? This is your mixing ratio. So when you get to your dew point, you want to basically, or go to your mean dew point, I should say. In this case, they're doing it from a mean standpoint, which is also whack. But they take your mean dew point, they rise that through the mixing ratio, and they combine in this sense. Now, funny enough, if you were to just do it not with any mean anything, no mean shenanigans, which is what you're going to do in Met 101, you take the temperature from where it started, you rise it dry adiabatically up to a point, you take the dew point, you rise that up with a mixing ratio, and boom. Right here is where your LCL is. That's where that is where clouds start to condensate. Right in that area, which is just a little bit below 1 kilometer. It's about around 900 millibars, give or take. And then once it becomes saturated, once it becomes the LCL, that's when the parcel, because it turns into clouds, starts to rise moist adiabatically, which is not in this diagram in the background at all. So I can't really show you. But there would be a diagram on one of these soundings of these lines that move up this way in the background. And you can just rise that parcel all the way up. All the way up. Now, one thing I will say, Julius, you were asking about the LFC, right? So, LFC, this is basically where your air can rise freely. All right. So when I was talking about the lid on top of a pot, all right, this is our lid, right? So this is where there is a lack of rising. But when there is no more limiting factors to rising in the environment, whatever is right above it is where the lifted free convection is. Because you notice our red line doesn't go over the dotted line again, even for the rest of the sounding. It would eventually do so once you get into like the extreme upper levels, but don't worry about that too much. The fact of the matter is that above the inversion here, that's where the LFC is, and that's what you would add in. And then of course, for folks that may be in or may have been in the stream for the longest periods of time, this right here is our EML, because that's what our inversion is. Elevated mixing layer. Pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. perfectly explained, and I'll have to go through multiple examples to really do so, but of course, I always try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. You'll make a meme. There it is. Seems legit. Mathematics and meteorology scares me. I feel that. Why do I think there hasn't been an EF5 rated since 2013? Personally, because I feel like the standards to a lot of the people who are rating tornadoes are pretty high. But that's just me. I also think the enhanced Vegeta scale, though, is a very good way of determining the lowest potential intensity of a tornado is flawed. If people were to say, instead of a tornado being only 200 mile per hour, 200 mile per hour winds, they can say winds at minimum of 200 miles per hour. And that would sound so much better. I also think people can't build houses correctly. But that's a story for another time. Any other weather questions that you guys may have, whether it's for today or learning meteorology at all, because we're just killing time here. I kid you not, there is nothing to do. We're just waiting. We're just sitting here. I told you guys, it'd be another one of these events. Another one of these events where you're either going to get, a lot of stuff, you're not going to get a whole lot. How can you tell if it's raining outside my house right now? That can be answered in two different ways. Are you lazy enough to go on your phone and check the radar app, or can you get up and look out the window? Or can you hear it? Some days I get pretty lazy, so I can't exactly fault you too much. How does constructive and destructive cell merges play a role in tornado genesis? So that's a really good question. So one thing I will say before I make my comment on it is that is still being studied to this day. All right, they're not fully aware of what completely happens and what specific things need to be done and at what angles storms need to do in order to complete a cell merger. A good one or a bad one, constructive or destructive. But I will say, if a destructive cell merger occurs, then storms obviously start to dissipate. At least either that or it recycles. Now, I've noticed that if a storm comes at like a 90-degree angle, so if it's moving perpendicular to storm motion and it merges with a thunderstorm, it usually is a destructive cell merger. And if it's just like a direct merge. If the storm, however, that tries to merge with the main storm is a little bit further out in front, then what can happen is is you have a lot of storms. So if let's say we had a storm that moved out in front of this supercell, and it went this way, right? The back storm, the storm that is at the rear, is the one that likely is going to Fujiwara around it. It's going to speed up its storm motion, and it's going to curl, and in turn, increase storm relative helicity, increase streamwise vorticity within the area. Which means that things usually are a lot more crazy. But that's usually what happens. If you can get some form of Fujiwara effect within your cell merger, to where the rear storm can spin around and enhance storm relative helicity, it'll do it. Let's see. You're cooking dinner right now? I get that. Is the storm going anywhere near Gautier, Mississippi? What part of the state is that? Is that southwest, southeast, southern, central? Is it near Jackson? Is it near Macomb, Natchez, Vicksburg? How bad do I think the 24 hurricane season will be for Florida? Well, I mean, based off of the fact that we're going to get a La Nina and sea surface temperatures are well above average. Like every single day, sea surface temperatures are setting a new record. It's going to be pretty active. What's my favorite color? It's a good question. I think it's either purple or blue. One of the two. Apparently, the reason why Rolling Fork wasn't in EFI was because even though they found one structure that was cleaned off the foundation, the building next to it didn't completely fall down. I also think the buildings in Rolling Fork were not strong enough to withstand a whole lot of damage regardless. Because usually how they look at it is they look at the building's integrity and what the maximum amount of winds could hit in order for it to do damage. And a lot of those buildings were not constructed the greatest. Smackover, Arkansas? What part of state is that in? Or what part of the state is that in? What are photographs in Cape? That's a good question, and I'll answer that here in a second once I get through all these questions. How does terrain play a role in tornadoes and storms? So, it can play a role in two different ways. First off, if there's a mountain and a valley that is orchestrated within a specific way, the wind will actually be channeled through that valley and be manipulated. Be manipulated that way. And then there's also elevation that can play a role, and elevation comes in two different parts. The higher up above sea level you are, can actually determine as to if your moist air mass that comes from the Gulf of Mexico can actually play a role within your environment. So for instance, New Mexico. New Mexico is out in the desert southwest, so naturally the environment out there is usually pretty dry. But anytime it's had some severe weather and the moisture from the Gulf of Mexico tries to get into that area, the elevation in itself is pretty high. And if you think of the land mass here, so if I create our land here, here is our ocean, and then land that steadily ascend, right? Our moist air mass may only go up to a certain height before you start to kind of not really get a whole lot. So New Mexico only gets, say, certain height in regards to dew points. Not really that strong. But say if you were closer to the water, right, the lower elevation, that's a different story. So there's that. And then the other thing about it is mountains. Usually on the windward side of the mountains, that's usually where a lot more precipitation exists. And then on the opposite side, it's a lot drier. So that's the reason why if you look in California sometimes, you can see, if you look above me, right? So if we have a mountain range right here. On the western side, there's a lot of green. On the eastern side, there's a lot of tan. So terrain plays a role with that as well. Saw a live tornado last year in South Carolina. That's gnarly. How can you tell damage done from a tornado and from a microburst? So if it's out in the middle of a forest, the trees from a tornado will actually be falling in multiple directions, whereas a microburst usually falls all in the same direction. Usually. Yeah, nothing's happened so far. We're just waiting. How do I think the hurricane season in Virginia will go? Not really getting anything in Virginia, in my opinion. If anything, it'll ride up the coast, but that's it. The only way for hurricanes to make landfall in Virginia and move up through that way would be if storms, or if the storm was forced really far off to the west, and it's just pretty uncommon for it to happen. Might want to check CAPO. I mean, it is a supercell. It does have a mesocyclone. It's just garbage. It's just garbage. That's how I feel about it. I'll look it up, DDO. I'll look it up one day. Okay. So someone asked what is CAPE and what is something else. I can't remember what it was. Do you guys remember what it was? I gotta look through. What are photographs and what is CAPE? Perfect. So, CAPE is pretty easy to explain. Very easy, actually. Weather sounding. All right, so we're going to go look at sounding here from... Oh, that's terrible. My goodness. Wait, why are all these 12Z? I want 18Z. Yeah, that works. Okay. So, CAPE is basically measuring the amount of energy that is associated with thermodynamic lift. All right. Thermodynamic lift is essentially how fast warm air from the surface can rise up until it can't no more. All right. The more CAPE you have, the faster that air can rise up into the sky. So if you had really cold air up here and you had really warm air down here, you get some really fast moving air, some really fast moving vertical wind shear. Can wind shear form over water? Signs of higher... I'm actually going to go northern hemisphere. And I'll show you the 500 millibar wind shear, right? Here's North America, Greenland, Scandinavia, of course, Siberia, Japan, portions of China down here and stuff like that. All right, so this is the North Pole right here. North Pole. Wind shear just flows. It's like a river, but the river starts changing in directions all over the place. And it constantly just goes up and down and around and all sorts of crazy places. All right. But yes, wind shear can form over water. And winds over water usually are a little bit quicker than, say, if you take the same system and put it over land. Because if you think of it this way, there's not really a whole lot of friction when it comes to water. Whereas when you're on land, you have trees, you have buildings, you have hills and mountains and all sorts of stuff like that. It's just, is the vent cooked or cooking? Neither. It's dormant. It's just sitting there, considering. As for photographs, we'll pull photographs up here because that's cool. NWS Storm Spotter from New Orleans. Traveled out of my jurisdiction to Mississippi as it seems to be the heart of it. Yeah, that makes sense. By the way, someone asked, what was the point of storm spotters and stuff like that? They just report to the National Weather Service. They don't really do too much. I mean, their information is vital, but you know, they can either sit still or they can either chase the storms, and all they do is just report back to the National Weather Service. All right, so a photograph. Photograph is pretty cool, right? So I want you guys to pay attention to these straight lines right here first. This is a vector chart. So if you can imagine the middle being no wind, and then if you had wind plotted at the top up here, these are winds blowing to the north, winds blowing to the east, winds blowing to the south, winds blowing to the west. Now, we usually don't say it that way. We say blowing from, which is basically the opposite of where this is plotted. But for simplicity's sake, we'll stick with it right now. So this line right here, in between 1 and 2 kilometers, we have winds blowing to the north. To the north. All right. And then these dotted circles indicate in increments the intensity of wind, especially at each height. So each number here, each black circle, is the height in kilometers. So 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kilometers above ground level. Now, a photograph is exactly that. You can plot it here. You can see at about 1 kilometer above ground level, you have winds that are about 60 knots blowing to the north-northwest. At 2 kilometers, it's to the north-northeast at about, I'd say, 68 knots. And a good way you can tell if you have tornadic photographs is if photographs curl clockwise. Clockwise looping photographs. And you want the general photograph to kind of loop over to the side. Sometimes, you know, you have a little bit of a weird bump to the side. And, you know, that's fine. As long as it's not a significant bump. And as long as winds continue to veer. If you have winds veering in all sorts of different directions, you know, it'll get it done. But photographs essentially plot the winds with height within a particular spot. Yeah, these storms are on the struggle bus right now, ladies and gentlemen. We're not missing a whole lot. Any chance to go look for wind shear potential on March 14th in the Gulf of Mexico? 14th? That happened last week. 2 weeks ago. Something like that. Okay. Once you're done with that, storm in Iowa looks pretty solid. Ooh. What part of this? What state and what part of the state is that in? Because I have no idea where that is, and I'm also got a decent fear of the fact that that could potentially be a setup. So, no, I have no idea where that county is at. Lafiche. Yeah, what state? What part of the state is that? All right, told me to look up in Iowa. I'm gonna move Shreveport's radar up there. Is that popcorn I'm eating? Yeah, it's microwave popcorn. I just listen. I haven't ate today, so why not? But it's asking quite a time ago. I think you can. Depends upon where in the Gulf of Mexico. If it's along the coastline, then I'm sure you can. I might know a way or two. Can I explain bunkers right and left motions? What's good value for tornadoes? Bunkers right is always the correct motion. So, bunkers right takes into account when a storm starts to become fully mature. It's a right moving supercell. Bunkers left is when the storm splits and you have a left moving supercell, which usually is associated with very large hail. What would be storm motion of that storm? So if you want to know the direction of where supercells could potentially be going, bunkers right is usually a good idea. Sometimes storm motion can change, though, depending upon if the storm manipulates the environment. You have a question, Nate? What's the difference between streamwise and crosswise? Good question. Streamwise vorticity is very healthy for tornadoes. Very, very healthy for tornadoes. The more... All right. I want everyone to put on their thinking caps real quickly. Boop. Thinking caps. Okay? Streamwise vorticity. Think of it kind of like a meter. All right? On the closer this line gets to one side or the other is fully dependent upon which side or how much streamwise vorticity is on one side or another. All right? So, you have two components of vorticity. You have streamwise vorticity on the left. You have crosswise vorticity on the right. If this line, say, moves a little bit further to the right, okay, this gap here has a lot of streamwise vorticity to very little crosswise vorticity. And vorticity, there's always 100%, okay? So when you have vorticity, we're talking about vorticity. But the different types of vorticity can make up all of it, all right? So let's say you have a certain component of wind shear at a certain height be 75% streamwise and 25% crosswise, all right? You have a decently favorable tornadic environment if you have a decent amount of streamwise vorticity, probably at least 50% or higher. Good chance. Not saying that tornadoes can't form with less streamwise vorticity. It's happened before. But usually when you have streamwise vorticity over 50% within a certain span, a certain area, it's pretty good. So it can shift back and forth between a certain wind vector be mainly streamwise, mainly crosswise, whatever. But you want a lot of streamwise vorticity. How you see streamwise vorticity, how you are able to detect that with photographs, is you see right motion vector right here? See this? If the wind is moving perpendicular to the right motion vector, it is likely to be streamwise. Whereas if the wind is moving directly towards the right motion vector, let's see if I can get a better example here through CAPO. Right? So you see this wind here is moving a lot more towards the right motion vector than perpendicular. That is crosswise vorticity. Okay? So you want your lowest 3 kilometer levels to be streamwise. And you can see even here, from 1 to 3 kilometer, the line is starting to move closer to the right motion vector. It is moving directly towards it. So that is crosswise vorticity. And the better way to explain as to how I look at streamwise and crosswise is I look at it from piece by piece. So from the surface to 0.5 kilometer, is the line moving perpendicular to right motion, or is it moving towards it? It's moving perpendicular, so this is streamwise. From 0.5 kilometer to 1 kilometer, is it moving perpendicular? Yes, it's moving perpendicular, which means that's some streamwise vorticity. From 0 to 2 kilometers, is it moving perpendicular? Yeah, for the most part. It's getting a little bit closer to the right motion vector, so you have a little bit more crosswise vorticity induced into it. But it's pretty much streamwise. And then from 2 to 3, is it streamwise? Yeah, I'd say there is some streamwise vorticity in it, but once again, it is kind of curling a little bit closer to the right motion vector, and it's getting a lot closer. So you do have some crosswise vorticity associated with it. So that's how I look at if a photograph has streamwise vorticity within its, a certain area, and if it has crosswise. Wall cloud in Grand Junction, Iowa. Oh boy. That's a mini supercell near Jefferson, Iowa. Yeah, all these storms are likely going to try and produce little spin-up tornadoes. So it might be something to watch. And I can give you another example with streamwise and crosswise if you guys need. That's a terrible example. That's a terrible example too. Man. Give me something decent, please. Okay, this is a little bit better. So we can do this from 1 to 2 kilometers, right? 1 to 2 kilometers. Wind is moving kind of perpendicular to the right motion vector, so it's got some streamwise vorticity. It's got some, but it's also got a little bit of crosswise vorticity. All right? And you want that veering with height that moves perpendicular to the right motion vector, so that way you can get some good fanning out of ventilation. But then, what about our 2 to 3 kilometer wind? Is that moving parallel? Is that moving towards the right motion vector, or is it moving perpendicular with it? It's moving directly towards the right motion vector. It's moving parallel. So, this is a lot of crosswise vorticity from 2 to 3 kilometers. And as I said, there's nothing wrong with having crosswise vorticity, as long as, and I would say this is the main point here for me at least, from 0 to 1 kilometer, that's got to be mainly streamwise, because that's, you know, your lowest level of the atmosphere. That's where your tornadoes form. I mean, the tornado's got to touch the ground, right? So you got to make sure that at least has some streamwise vorticity. And here's the other thing here too. When I said that storms manipulate the environment, how they manipulate it is through the motion of the supercell. So right motion is just the movement of the thunderstorm, all right, when it is a supercell. But supercells can change the right motion vector depending upon outside forces, such as outflow boundaries, storm mergers, all sorts of stuff like that. So you can have your right motion vector be like northeast, and you can look at it based off of this way as well, to where, hey, some areas might be a little bit more streamwise. You know, you can have a fast right motion vector over here, to where this could be a lot more streamwise, and then it turns more crosswise. You can have a slower storm right motion, and your 2 to 3 kilometer would be a little bit more streamwise. You know, stuff like that. Storms can manipulate its direction and the environment, depending upon how it interacts with other storms. Freddie McKinney is an interesting thing in Iowa. I might look at that in a bit. What does streamwise vorticity tangibly mean for a cell? Is it just related to storm ventilation, or does it affect the way storm is able to utilize instability, turbulence near the surface? That's a good question. So streamwise vorticity, it has mostly everything to do with vorticity, and its ventilation, mostly. Being able to ventilate that vorticity throughout the updraft can make things, make the transition from the lower levels of the atmosphere to the upper levels a lot smoother, depending upon the type of vorticity that you have. Now, if you don't have streamwise vorticity near the surface, then that transition from, say, the surface to the updraft and the mesocyclone is not exactly going to be that clean, which means the general spin for supercells is not going to really be that great. All right. If you had winds moving all in the same direction, let's say you had this right motion vector right here, but then you had nothing but wind that was right here. It was just 2 kilometer, 3 kilometer, 4 kilometer, 1 kilometer, 0 kilometer, and just winds were steadily increasing with height. Because you have no veering, because it is not changing direction with height, you are not gaining any sort of real streamwise vorticity. You're not gaining any sort of spin in the atmosphere, because there's already natural spin in the atmosphere through eddies. All right, that's how vorticity is created. And I'll get into that more in a second. But being able to ingest that vorticity and bring it up through the updraft can actually allow updrafts to be a lot more significant, a lot stronger. So vorticity is a key feature for tornadic development. Now, when I talk about eddies, this is really important for everyone to understand. So I talked about a little bit earlier that at the surface, winds are obviously going to be a lot slower than it is, say, at 500 millibars, so 6 kilometers above ground level. And when you have that, you tend to sometimes get this little horizontal circulation that occurs within the atmosphere. This is how the environment can naturally mix dew points and temperatures without it being purely thermodynamic. And these horizontal circulations are called eddies. Sometimes you also see this in roll clouds. All right. Now these eddies actually in through tail clouds. And this is the vorticity that is ingested into the storm. These roll clouds, whether they are invisible or not, get ingested into the storm through the inflow notch. And they basically, as soon as they encounter the updraft, which is nothing but rising motion in a spot, get tilted. So that way the spin just happens around the updraft, in a sense. All right. Now, depending upon the direction this horizontal spin is, all right, so let's say you had, if we went back to Fort Polk's radar, let's say we were looking at this storm, right? And each line indicates a roll cloud that I'm about to create, okay? So if we had a roll cloud that formed like this, because this wind is perpendicular to the storm, this is crosswise vorticity to it. And this is unhealthy vorticity, right? But if the eddies are being fed directly in as if it's, you know, a $5 foot long at Subway that you're eating, right? And it's just, you know, like a sub, and you're eating it that way, right? It's kind of the same thing for a thunderstorm. It's got a mouth, right? Mouth. So these black lines are a mouth to it. And if the eddy is being pulled in this way, and it's able to tilt it up and successfully ingest it, then that's a lot healthier for that updraft to start spinning. Whereas that spin only, if it was crosswise vorticity, you're only getting certain parts of that roll cloud. You're not getting the full amount to allow it to keep spinning over and over again. So I hope that made things a little bit easier to understand. Of Kinder, Louisiana mini supercell needs to be watched later on. Look at that. 32903. I'm going to look that up. As I said, it would be really appreciate it if you guys gave me just Melbourne, Florida. If it's in Florida, it's, you know, you guys are fine. Florida, there's not really much going on. Might get a thunderstorm or two over there, but really, there's nothing. Yep, we're all kind of just sitting here, considering the following. Took my work break at the perfect time. Seems legit. How do you confidently say when a storm has probably dropped a tornado without seeing a clear TDS? So TDS can be used based off of ZDR and correlation coefficient. So if we were to take that off, I would say basically if there was a TVS, a tornado vortex signature, and a spectrum width drop associated with it. And a tornado vortex signature officially is classified as anything that is, I think, 110 miles per hour or stronger as a delta velocity. If I remember correctly, I'd have to pull that back up again. Something like that. Either that or it's 100 miles per hour. But regardless, tornado vortex signature. All right. If you get a tornado vortex signature and a spectrum with spike within it, not a spectrum with drop. I keep saying drop, but spike within it. Usually, that tells you everything you need to know. That's a little mini supercell there in Allen Parish in Louisiana. That might have the best rotation out of all the storms, besides this one in Monroe. I'm going to move the radar from Jackson to Monroe. The experimental radar. Do I have GR2 Hammond's radar? I do. The peak is in like 2 hours, if there is a peak. Whatever that is. Very interesting. It seems Monroe's radar is definitely doing the Lord's work. Flash flood warning for Puerto Rico. They need to consider. Consider multiple followings. Let me do that real quick. Yeah, I have no idea what that dude's doing. Oh. I see. I see what's happening. I get what's happening. Oh, it feels like there's a needle in my back. Except there isn't. So those soundings actually tell you those eddies oriented. That's pretty cool. Yep. Basically. At least within particular spots. Not across the... You know, because the sounding only happens within one portion. You know, one specific spot at a time. So that's why you have to take soundings all over the place. Try and figure it out. That's why we say, you know, this sounding was from blank. You know, like that sounding was from, or that hodograph was from Jackson, Mississippi. You know, there's another hodograph that I can look at from New Orleans. So, yeah. Yeah, there's a radar in Monroe, but it's an experimental radar. It's a college radar. Eh, yeah, I definitely have not done the Pac-Man analogy in a while, but honestly, I mean, we haven't really needed to use it. Yeah, maybe I'll need an ice pack. Something of the sort. Neither have I, Caleb. I couldn't remember. Anything going to happen in Memphis, Tennessee later? Not really. Might get some strong winds from these, these storms. They're not really going to be severe. At least I don't believe so. So don't be surprised if you get some rain and some showers, but there really isn't much happening within that. Will I have more classes on radar coming soon? Maybe. Depends upon how busy I am with college. I don't see why not, though. Yeah, we seem to be having a fun time, right? Just kind of chilling out for the most part. When is the main event? This is the main event. We're trying to figure out if it's doing anything. Main event's going to be happening. So we're kind of just figuring stuff out here. There is a supercell that I am going to watch, though. It's over near Dry Pong. Or Dry Prong, I should say. Looks like it just had a successful, or some form, may not be successful, but some form of storm merger that just occurred north of Alexandria. And it just got a severe thunderstorm warning because of it. Which, for good reason. Hmm. We finally have some weather to talk about, right? So this is an embedded supercell. I'm actually going to go to a 2-panel here. This is going to be reflectivity. This is going to be ZDR. So here's an embedded supercell right within here. This is terrible. Yeah, that's a bit better. So once again, embedded supercell. See general swirling of the rain right within there. But right here, see how that's just to the bottom part of the P? Right here, bottom part of the Y, bottom part of the P, a dry prong, or a dry prong. That's red. That's an updraft. There definitely seems to be an updraft within this particular storm right here. So this storm is going to try to sustain. It's going to try. But its updraft has got to live. It's got to try to live at least. Kid in the backseat wants to know, have we got there yet? I get that. Model suggests more of a broken line the next couple of hours. Semi-discrete supercells will be capable of all hazards. If it can continue to maintain. This storm, the only reason why it became a supercell is because it just underwent what appears to be a successful cell merger. So can this thing maintain its current intensity? That's the real question. But yeah, the threat for tonight is these type of supercells producing tornadoes. Embedded supercells within the line. Yesterday, here the rain was the worst you've seen in 6 decades. Woof. Did it create some localized flooding for you? Yeah, they basically will be spin ups. The longest they could probably be on the ground is probably about 10 minutes. But they will be long tracked cells because of how quickly these storms are going to be moving. So just for reference, storm motion within this supercell is 50 miles per hour to the northeast. Hope everyone's having a decent time right now. I wish I could play music. I don't want to get copyrighted though. Sing a song? I'm not gonna sing. Leave my singing days behind me when I used to be in a choir. Otherwise, I'm not gonna sing. Ain't happening. You cannot convince me. Do I say anything possible? Or anything posing a threat in the next hour? Yeah. This one, severe thunderstorm right here. This one, severe thunderstorm heading into Somerville, Jenna, Manifest, Enterprise, Harrisonburg, Extension. It's heading south of Kelly Clark's. Heading south of Kelly Clarkson. Look at that. Why not sing opera? Because I definitely do not have the voice for that. No chance. Good for cleansing the body. Yeah, okay. Think of as many weather-related songs as you can. Go first. Clouds by Chocolate. You know, that's a good thing. Chat, let's start thinking of weather songs. Now, I'll add a caveat here. Okay? You cannot add songs that were from Twister. You cannot add songs that were from Twister or any other weather movie. They need to have weather inside of it. There's a song called Chasing Storms. It's an EDM song that I know of. It's pretty good. It's from 99 Lives. Do I not have this playlist anymore? Like, genuinely, where is it? I don't think I have that playlist anymore. That's a little sad. Well, anyways. White Lightning. Rule the World by Zane Wolf. It's not about weather, but it has a weather reference in it. I'll rise right up like a thunderstorm. There are no locked doors anymore. We own the future. We own the future. All right, that ZDR decided to go away now. Wonderful. Just noticed the Cape Cod hoodie. This is my only oversized hoodie that I have, and I just wanted it to be warm. I went to Cape Cod about 2-3 years ago, I think it was. Something like that. 3 years ago. 3 years ago. Waiting for the rain. Hold up. There's an anime song called Waiting for the Rain by some Japanese artist, but it's like all in English. It's really good. Rock You Like a Hurricane. There it is. Yep. I have Popular by the Weeknd and Madonna stuck in my head right now. So if you guys hear me humming, it's probably that song. And then I also have 2 country songs that Miss Wonderful that I know has got me stuck in my head. But right now, Popular is stuck in my head. Thunder by Imagine Dragons, yep. Calvin Harris, This Is What You Came For. Baby, this is what you came for. Lightning Strikes every time you move. It's terribly off pitch, but you get the point. Yeah, every single weather reference in a song. There you go. Hmm. What boy looking at? Surface-based cape? Are you serious? Why are you looking at a surface-based cape, fool? Don't ever look at a surface-based cape. Surface-based cape is good. What the heck are you looking at? I'm suffering over here. All the cringe in the world. Yeah, I'm suffering over here. Begging on her knees to be popular. To be popular. With many weather songs, but Thunder from Imagine Dragons is overrated. I do kind of agree. I like 3 Cape more. Well, 3 Cape is nice, but people who only solely use 3 Cape are kind of blinded by overall environmental factors. Mixed layer Cape's the best. And the reason why mixed layer Cape is the best is because it takes into account mean temperature, whereas surface-based Cape overdoes it by taking into account the worst or the highest temperature there is available. Or the one that, it's not the highest temperature, I should say, is the most beneficial temperature to the environment. Which is the reason why surface-based Cape will always be higher than mixed layer Cape unless if there is like no inversion whatsoever, which is like impossible or next to impossible. Always use mixed layer Cape. It will give you a really good idea of what's going on. But you can also use 3 Cape as well. Yeah, mixed layer Cape is OP. E Cape is better though. I have to study more into what makes E Cape good, but the new Cape that they got, E Cape, is pretty dope. But yeah, if you go to surface-based Cape, you can see in some areas you have pretty high values, and then go mixed layer Cape. It doesn't even reach 1,500 in southwestern Louisiana. Begging on her knees to be popular. So it looks like the storm that's near Georgetown is finally starting to intensify, which means we might actually get a storm that could be tornado warned in a second. Most unstable Cape, what is that? So most unstable Cape is usually taken into account for if there is no inversion at all whatsoever. Like if we don't care about inversion or if storms are elevated, use most unstable Cape, because most unstable Cape, it'll tell you how much Cape there is for like elevated thunderstorms and storms that are behind the warm front or any sort of boundary. I don't know how much energy there is for elevated storms, use most unstable Cape. Don't use anything else. Yes, it definitely is still a bit broad. But if you look up in tilt, you can definitely tell there is a mesocyclone here, which means this thing is ingesting a lot of streamwise vorticity. So this thing is definitely cooking a little bit. What do I use when looking at mesoscale analysis? Quite a few things. I'll show you here in a second. All this educational stuff being mentioned. I feel like there's a Nate Snyder viewer. Trey Convective Chronicle subscription pipeline in the best way possible. Yeah, Convective Chronicles is very good at what he does. Very good. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. But if you want more than just nothing but meteorology talk, you come to this channel for that too. Because we're pretty wacky. So mesoanalysis. I'm actually going to go over to this over here. Make things a little bit better for us so that we can actually see what's maybe going on. I'm going to go back to our Fort Polk radar so I can keep it on the side. But mesoanalysis, right? So what I do is I look at a couple of things. Now, let's decide upon a topic as to what I'm specifically looking for. Because I feel like that can really help us. I'll fix that later. So, the heck is that? I have no idea. I'm going to delete that. So, a topic that we could be doing is trying to assess, is I use upper air, the upper air tab, which is right there. I'm going to zoom in. Upper air tab and wind shear tab. And what I use in those, actually, I'm going to move this over a little bit more to the side so that way you can see. And we'll start with upper air. We can go to 500 millibar wind shear. And what we can do is we can change our sector and we can go to the full conus sector right here, which basically gives us a whole giant look. So you can see, all right, well, we have a low pressure system that is in the upper levels here in the portions of Kansas. We have our jet stream that's starting to kind of dig on through into portions of Texas into the Ozarks, as well as the deep south. I note that this trough, at least from the low pressure system, is negatively tilted because you notice how tight the isobars within this particular spot is right here. So we have a negatively tilted shortwave trough that is moving on through the area here. Of course, we have a giant long wave trough that is moving on through right here as well. Okay. So I note that. I note where the short wave is, but I also want to note that in our long wave trough here, okay, we can cut in half and we can be able to see we have the entrance region, which is on the rear side. This favors a lot of stable air. And over here, on this side of the long wave trough, favors a lot of unstable air, a lot of divergence. So we have convergence aloft in the back. We have divergence aloft in the front. And that's the reason why we have a pretty wide mode for severe weather across the board. And that's the reason why there's also a tornado threat, because on the left exit region of our trough here, so we notice how our wind shear gets weaker and weaker as we get closer and closer to Iowa, right? When that happens, wind shear can start to disperse into two different directions. This is called diffluence aloft. All right. And when wind shear starts to weaken and weaken more like that, on the left side of our wind shear is called our left exit region, which favors the most divergence, which is the reason why over here in Iowa we have a little mini tornado risk, because there is some strong divergence aloft. Whereas to the east of that, over here, we have a lot of convergence aloft, not really a whole lot of severe weather happening up in the upper levels, right? We also have a lot of convergence down here into the heart of the jet streak, and a lot of wind shear as well. If we go to the 300 millibar wind shear level, you can see that there is a pretty strong jet streak that is starting to try to move on through the portions of the southern plains up into the Ozarks. And that's going to continue to push on through as well. But there's also a localized jet streak right here in the portions of Iowa and Minnesota. And if we kind of correlate that with our winds from our METAR station, we can see that we have our current low pressure system that is somewhere here in Iowa. Somewhere here in Iowa and Minnesota, because you can see our winds are curling in all sorts of different directions right in here, and it starts to curl back down near Kansas City. So somewhere here, from Iowa down into northwestern Missouri, that's where we have some activity here near the surface for some potential surface low development. And usually when you have a lot of a strong jet streak over that low pressure system, which is what we have, usually that indicates that our low pressure system that is there is in one of its occlusion stages, either the late occlusion stage or eventually could be even the dissipation phase. So I have no idea what the dude's talking about, so he can consider. Consider. So when we have a localized maximum of vorticity within that area, or not vorticity, of strong wind shear here at the 300 millibar level through this jet streak, we usually can attribute that to an occluding low pressure system, especially if it's nearly directly over it. But we also do have a lot of these little purple lines right here, which indicates divergence aloft. And that's very good for thunderstorms, obviously. But the problem is that when you have an occluding thunder or an occluding low pressure system, or a very infant low pressure system that's going to try and develop back here towards portions of New Mexico and Texas, and it's going to try and move on through. You don't really have a whole lot of divergence aloft. The divergence either starts to go away over time here with our occluding low pressure system, or our new low pressure system really just doesn't have a lot of divergence to begin with, and it's kind of in the phase of just trying to steadily build and increase over time. I'm going to adjust our radar so that way it's a little bit easier to see. So over our system here in the Deep South, we really don't have a lot of divergence to work with, which means ventilation within these storms in the upper levels, at least, is okay. It's okay. I mean, the strong wind shear is going to allow it to ventilate, but divergence usually calls for or allows for a lot of convergence at the surface. And because we don't really have a whole lot more divergence than we already do have, we can't really anticipate a whole lot more convergence to happen near the surface in general. Which means what we got is what we got. All these little rinky-dink thunderstorms is pretty much all that we have. Squishy is not in the chat right now. I do not believe. Guys are really making me want to put on a sub-only chat. Because I will. Because I will. I'm going to do it. Y'all can consider now a roundup. Whip y'all in the shape. True facts. And if you become a sub just to troll, it's kind of funny. What'd you miss? People in chat being stupid and me explaining how I look at mesoanalysis. By the way, not everyone in chat. So yeah, I look at those two levels. 850. Always look at version 2. Version 2 is always the best. You can obviously, there's a lot of strong wind shear here in the Deep South, and we can actually change our sector to respond accordingly to it. You can see a lot of wind shear. Yes, you did, Caleb. Yes, you did. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of wind shear here in this area, so that's pretty cool. And then a wind shear, I use 0 to 6 kilometer. Everyone's going to use effective bulk shear, but that's not how that works, at least not in my book. I like to just dissect it from specific kilometer ranges, and effective bulk shear only just takes a look, I guess, at like localized amounts. That's just stupid in my opinion. I'm just going to look at the 0 to 6 kilometer bulk shear and just be good enough. And this wind shear is pretty gnarly. We're talking about at least 60 knot bulk shear from 0 to 6 kilometers. So it's pretty strong. If we had enough energy, we'd be able to sustain supercells. But the problem is we don't exactly have that energy. And then I usually look at surface to 3 kilometer storm relative velocity. The surface to 1 kilometer works pretty well as well. Storm relative velocity is streamwise vorticity. That's what it is. It's not just vorticity, it's streamwise vorticity. So Marilyn Cho, what's up? Welcome to the stream. So yeah, I use that, but I mean, you just don't have a whole lot. I mean, we'll go back to the mixed layer cape, and there's just not really a lot. at all. You just have this one storm that is over in LaSalle Parish, Louisiana, that it's trying its best. Is there a link to becoming a member on my channel that works for iOS? I'm not too sure. I don't believe so, but I can try. Okay. Try this here, chat. If you want to be a member, click that link. Choose whichever one you may want. I feel that. He's bored. I'm bored too. Can I explain how to read moisture convergence? I sure can. Moisture convergence at the surface. This just basically takes a look at the surface. All right, like very slim levels. There's a lot of convergence here. On the blue, the higher the number, the more convergence there is. And of course, the mixing ratio is the mixing ratio. That basically takes a look at where our dew points start off. So why they didn't just do dew points, I don't know. But basically, the more convergence and the higher the mixing ratio it is. The more likely you're going to get thunderstorms near that area. And then upper air deep moist convergence. As I said, if you have too much red, then it's going to be messy mode. A lot of rain. But if you have only a little bit, like single digit number red, it's good enough convergence. Good enough convergence. Is it just you that's lagging? I would refresh. Refresh. Also could be an internet issue. What have you missed so far? Nothing. We've talked about weather. I kid you not. When does this watch end? 8 p.m. Central. I'm considering the following. The internet service has been terrible as of the past week. I'm gonna have to bring that up with people of the house. You have heartburn? Woof. I have no idea how to deal with heartburn, so I just hope you get better. Today's a good 5 sig day. Today's a good 2%. Two sig day. That severe thunderstorm warning has now been canceled. Actually, it expired. Gabe with the membership. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. That means what? 6 months? I think it is. Jeez, 6 months of being a member, I think. If not, it's 3. I think it might be 3. Let's find out. I cannot see. That's great. I love it. I love it. I think it's 3 months. 2 months, 24 days. Okay, so 3 months. Good stuff. How do you get the new radar site on GR2? You don't see it on your end? You got to update it. You got to go into the owners forum. Get the update from there. Huh. That's cooking. That's not cooking. Am I going to see the eclipse on April 8th? I very well could. I'm in the 90% chance, or not the 90% chance, the 90% covering where I live, so I might take the trip to go to the area of complete eclipse, wherever that is. So either Erie, Pennsylvania, Buffalo, New York, or Rochester, New York. One of the 3 areas. CMMF Gaming, what's up? Welcome. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. May I have an idea on how I get the new radar? I mean, I was able to give the download link to a lot of people in Discord. So I was able to give it to places. But I know the reason why Discord cannot be used. Hoping the weather will cooperate. Yeah, me too. That'd be great. Maybe over Google Docs, like Drive. That might work. Maybe. I tried sending it over email, and it said the file was blocked. So I wonder if that would work. But hmm. Yeah, we can. We can try after stream. Yep, that's me right now, Kaylee. This is the truth. Good meme. I retweeted that on my Twitter. Yep. It's currently how I feel. Oh my gosh. Man, oh man. We'll probably go 5% tomorrow, in your opinion. I think it'll go 5% tomorrow as well. And if it doesn't, it should be at 5%. Yeah, the person I was talking to weather people as well. This event's boring. I wonder if the latest HRRR said anything. Can I explain differential reflectivity? I sure can. After looking at this HRRR run. Yeah, what is this? This is like bleh. Really? From 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m., 12 p.m. is when stuff is going to do stuff. That's amazing. Yeah, I guess my internet's just going to keep going in and out. That's cool. The squish Becca, you are not. Becky Lynn. No. Consider the following. I think it could do something. It'll just be a lot later on tonight. It's now the waiting game. Unfortunately. Yesterday, people said today would be a real threat. Who? Who said today was going to be a real threat? Who? Who? I'll tell you who. Other content. Other clickbait content creators should just go home. That's how I feel. Because here's my thing. All they have is cookie crumbs on their stomach, looking at this SPC, just looking off of what they say and stuff like that. You know, sitting in their grandma's basement with their dad's money, playing video games all day, drinking Mountain Dew. Like, it's just... Please, love of God, if you're going to clickbait, at least know what you're talking about. You know, there's some people that I've seen, even the people that I was watching last night while I was live streaming. I got so upset by some people live streaming and talking about the radar and stuff like that. I was just like, buddy, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, some people, I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who actively live streams radar besides maybe Evan Freiberger, who actually knows a shred of decency about contamination on radar. Other than that, most other people live stream, they see this, you know, weird velocities on the screen. They're like, oh, it's, you know, it's the strongest rotation I've ever seen. This is gonna be a May 3rd, 1999 big tornado here. You know, this is one of the strongest tornadoes I've ever seen. Y'all need to get into shelter right now. And I'm kind of like, dude, stop. Like, it's just, that's causing more anxiety. And I get you don't even know what's going on. You know, I get that you're trying to, you know, tell people what's going on and stuff like that. But you really have no idea. No, it's not David Schlotthauer again. I'm not talking about David Schlotthauer. I don't even know. I haven't even looked at David Schlotthauer in a long time. I've tried to be on good terms with him, and then unfortunately he just made me real upset the one day, and I was just like, I'm not entertaining you anymore. I told him not to delete his YouTube channel. He did it anyways, so okay, cool. Not gonna entertain people who don't listen to me. Especially when I was trying to think of the best for them. Oh well. You get to learn. No, Ryan Hall does not have a degree in meteorology. He has meteorologists around him, and he takes in the information that they tell him. Now, with that being said, I do think Ryan does know a really good way of getting to as many people as he possibly can. He has a really strong outreach, and when he does hit, he hits, you know, which it's pretty easy to hit with some radar analysis. You know, and people are able to get the experience, get the information that they may need, and stuff like that. But God, I mean, it's just like, I really do wish that the people who have grown as much as they didn't put all their money into all the fancy monitors, the fancy keyboards, the mouses, and stuff like that. And really, they should just, you know, put their information or put their money into learning more about meteorology. Like, there's a 10-minute video of you learning about contamination on YouTube. Why you can't watch that, I have no idea. Are the Storms of Today event EP? It'll be from 8 to 11, unfortunately, because lower level lapse rates suck, and so we're just gonna probably wait for the shortwave to move across, and then once it's on a vorticity axis, it can run off of even crappy lapse rates. But that's the idea. I didn't want to say anything, Caden. I didn't want to say anything. I mean, I don't think it's the worst one. But I do think that there are some people out there that could be so much better because they are talented. They just refuse to go further. I really think they can go further. It's just a shame. It's just a real shame. Something about my big mouth getting me into trouble. About to play Rocket League, I feel that. Has there even been a single tornado warning yet? No, there's not. And by the way, I also want to state the people that I just talked bad about and or even slightly, and these other YouTubers, I'm sure they are phenomenal people. I'm sure they are good people to get to know. But based off of me looking at their content from a meteorology perspective and from a moral perspective, a lot of these people are not in the right place. There's a better way to get information out than stirring people's anxiety. And so apparently people were saying today was going to be pretty bad. So far, within the first 2.5 hours, or 2 hours and 46 minutes of us streaming, nothing's happened. Now, to be fair, best opportunity for severe weather is to come 2 hours from now, more than likely, which sucks because we have to wait for 2 hours. But it brings back the whole thing of just if people looked at trends and people looked at what all happened and has happened and what could happen, and if you understand how storms work and how environments work, you'll be able to know if an event is good enough or not. The problem is, a lot of people here who make meteorology content on YouTube who try to forecast, they don't. Not well enough. I was the exact same way about 2 years ago. And then I changed the way I looked at forecasting a couple of times, and I've got it decently down. There are some people who are way better than I am, but I try to do as best as I can. I was playing Rocket League earlier on today because I was just bored. I was bored because the weather wasn't happening immediately, so I just was, kind of waiting. I can't spell. Oh my gosh. No, I'm not gonna stream Rocket League right now. No. No. I'm gonna start raging if I do that. And I can't control my emotions when I play Rocket League. I'm pretty unhinged. Start calling my teammates stupid, but in a worse way. Substitute stupid with any other name that you can think of that is not very nice. I know it's boring. I dug my grave. I now have to live with it. No, it's a family-friendly stream for right now. It's too late, Riley. I've already done it. And by the way, I only say it when I know my teammates are not trying hard enough. Like, I'm a pretty competitive person, but I'm not like a try-hard. I only be a try-hard when I actually want to be. That's the reason why for the longest time I didn't actually try to get better at Rocket League. It was only up until the past 4 or 5 months when I actually did. This is by Norbert on Beans. Good meme. Good meme. Have I eaten yet? Nope. I mean, I ate popcorn. You know, chat, Riley brought up a very good idea. Nate needs a PG-13 vocabulary stream. You know, I would be able to be a little bit more unhinged if I was, but I'm not gonna. I've got an idea here, chat. I'm obviously going to be paying attention to the weather for the rest of the night. I'm going to. But if anything bad happens, I can start the stream. And then I can stream it from there. Because at this rate, it'll be about 2 hours before something really happens in general anyways. And that's a long time. Oh yeah, whenever I'm in VC, I'm a little bit more unhinged. Hibachi Cape Bomb. Oh, if I had some Japanese hibachi right now, I'd be living life. Does that sound like a good idea, chat? If I end the stream now, and then come back live whenever significant weather happens. How many people might like that idea? Plug some merch. Seems legit. Okay. For people that are on right now, watching me live, turn on channel notifications. Turn on channel notifications. I will post on Twitter if I need to come back on live. If I'm saying I'm live. I will post on YouTube, obviously. Be live on YouTube. That sounds like a good idea to me. Everyone okay with that? Need some Nate merch. There it is. Maybe the next stream. Anti-weathergami in San Francisco today. Okay, then that's what we're going to do, chat. Okay. We are going to end the stream for right now. And if something big happens later on tonight, we're coming back. All right. And trust me, I'll be watching the radar for the entirety of forever. Now, if you want to, I know there's some other people that are live streaming right now. And honestly, more power to them. There is a supercell near Winnsboro that is pretty interesting. That one's rotating. That one might be the near-term cell that could try and be tornadic. That one near Winnsboro. But honestly, it doesn't look too crazy. Looks like there's an upper level meso, but everything else is like a gusty wind shower. All right. I will catch you guys later on tonight, chat, assuming that stuff does things. If not, everyone can go about their day. I know other people are live streaming on YouTube, so you can watch them if you want. But, I mean, realistically speaking, if nothing's happening, then nothing's happening, you know? So. If you play Fortnite at least a couple of rounds of Battle Royale Zero builds, buy me the Battle Pass. That sounds pretty cool if I would have played Fortnite more often, but honestly, I'm not as attached to Fortnite as I was. I really liked it when they went back to the original OG map. But, I mean, it's just... I feel like they're doing too much now. I feel like they're doing too much. Alright, I will catch you guys later on tonight. Otherwise, everyone can go about their day. There's nothing really happening right now. So, good night, all. Catch you all next time. Good to see everyone. And, peace.